Hello, my beautiful bookish people. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about Femathon, which is happening in March of this year, and presumably for years to come, and was created by my friend Faye over at Books and Chocoholic. So I've been invited to be one of the hosts this year. I'm not really sure how active I'll be since, as you've noticed, I haven't been posting to my channel very frequently right now because medical things have been happening and I'm trying to figure out why and how often and how not to pass out as often, which has been really annoying, but don't worry too much because I'm very safe during these instances where I do pass out, because thankfully I get enough of a warning to where I can go lay down and fall asleep, because basically for a really long time now I thought I was just having a bunch of involuntary naps, which technically is another way to describe passing out, but anyways, that's not the point of this video, and I'll probably make a video talking about that over on my second channel, TheBookishSock 2. But anyways, let's get into my recommendations for Femathon, and perhaps I should tell you a bit about what it is actually about first. This is a feminine positive readathon. Basically, the only rules are read books with feminine characters doing like cool feminine character things. Basically, ladies kick butt and all that jazz. And, you know, just focus on that for a little bit. It can be written by male, female, non-binary authors. The author does not matter nearly as much as the story itself does, so just focus on stories that feature feminine characters. And of course, I will link all of the relevant information for this video down in the description box, so definitely check that out, because the other hosts are probably doing a way better job than I am at describing this. Yes, pick a non-binary / feminine-leaning person to describe Femathon. I'm not doing the greatest job right now, but it's fine. Everything's fine. We have a bingo board, and the first prompt is to read a classic. And for this, I am going to recommend Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, but I'm going to recommend the manga classics version because I discovered this version last year thanks to my friend Audrey, and she was like, hey, I know you have problems getting into classics, but I know you love manga, so try the manga classics version. And it was a wonderful adaptation for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The next tile is to read a femme-positive book. And for that, I need to turn back on my images because I don't remember what I put in these slots anymore. Oh yes! Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This could also fit in Femmes Fight Back or Wildcard. Anyways, there are a lot of these books that I'm recommending that could fit in other areas on this bingo board. This is just the area I just so happen to have put them in. And let's just say that our main character in Skyward has to overcome a lot to do what she really wants to do, and she kicks butt while doing it. And I should probably insert all of the book blurbs, you know, like what comes on the cover or what is in the Goodreads blurb thing about that. So if there are awkward edits, that's why. It's because I'm putting this in afterwards and editing this mess together. It's fine. Defeated, crushed, and driven almost to extinction, the remnants of the human race are trapped on a planet that is constantly attacked by mysterious alien starfighters. Spensa, a teenage girl living among them, longs to be a pilot. When she discovers the wreckage of an ancient ship, she realizes this dream might be possible, assuming she can repair the ship, navigate flight school, and, perhaps most importantly, persuade the strange machine to help her, because this ship uniquely appears to have a soul. And I can say that this description is a lovely representation of the story that you will find in this book. Next, we have BiPOC Rep, which is Black Indigenous People of Color. And for this, I have chosen the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. If there is only one series that I could save off my bookshelf if there was a fire, and I'm not counting what's on my Kindle and whatnot, because that's a digital backup. But if there's only one series of books in my house that I can rescue during a fire, it's going to be the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, which you will see pop up all 3 times on this recommendations list. And anyways, I can't say enough good things about the series. Insert the book blurb here. This is the way the world ends. Again. 3 terrible things happen in a single day. Soon, a woman living an ordinary life in a small town comes home to find that her husband has brutally murdered their son and kidnapped their daughter. Meanwhile, mighty Sansa, the world-spanning empire whose innovations have been civilization's bedrock for 1,000 years, collapses as most of its citizens are murdered to serve a madman's vengeance. And worst of all, across the heart of the vast continent known as the Stillness, a great red rift has been torn into the hearts of the earth, spewing ash enough to darken the sky for years, or centuries. Now Assun must pursue the wreckage of her family through a deadly, dying land. Without sunlight, clean water, or arable land, and with limited stockpiles of supplies, there will be a war all across the Stillness, a battle royale of nations not for power or territory, but simply for the basic resources necessary to get through the long dark night. Assun does not care if the world falls apart around her. She'll break it herself if she must, to save her daughter. And I will say that while this description is also completely accurate, it isn't just a mother-daughter story and a quest to save her daughter, though that is very much a part of the story. So if you're worried about it only being mother-daughter dynamics, that's definitely not what you're going to find here, because just read it to find out, because I don't want to talk much more, else I might give away some spoilers. Next, we have the Platonic Femme relationship, aka mother-daughter relationship or sister-friends, something like that. And for this, I have chosen the last book in the Broken Earth trilogy, which is The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. And just trust me, all of the books in this series are great, and you just need to read them all. And it has a very interesting dynamic in between the mother-daughter relationship here. And the wild card is going to the second book in the trilogy, The Obelisk Gate. I mean, come on, just please read them. Please read them. Let me know how you like them. Talk to me about them. I love these books. Next, we have an LGBTQIA+ representation, and for that, I have chosen Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi. I just read their book really recently, and I will say definitely look up the trigger warnings first before you get into this book, because content warning for rape and other things that I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but it's a really powerful story about self-identity and mental health and what it means to have a vagina and boobs. It also covers an area of, I don't know whether to call this fantasy or whether to call this religion, because I am not aware of this particular part of this culture. I know it's based off of real world things, so I'm more inclined to call it a part of a religious context, in that there is this god that is born into this human body, and the connection is supposed to be closed off when the birth takes place, and that doesn't happen. So now the main character has to struggle with being a human, but also having this part of a god in them. And it's very, very interesting. Again, please check the content warnings before you get into this book. An extraordinary debut novel, Freshwater explores the surreal experience of having a fractured self. It centers around a young Nigerian woman, Ada. Ada? How is it that I listen to the audiobook of this and yet I don't know which pronunciation they use? Anyways, Ada, who develops separate selves within her as a result of being born with one foot on the other side. Unsettling, heart-wrenching, dark, and powerful, Freshwater is a sharp evocation of a rare way of experiencing the world, one that illuminates how we all construct our identities. Ada begins her life in the south of Nigeria as a troubled baby and a source of deep concern to her family. Her parents, Saul and Sachi, successfully prayed her into existence, but as she grows into a volatile and splintered child, it becomes clear that something went terribly awry. When Ada comes of age and moves to America for college, the group of selves within her grows in power and agency. A traumatic assault leads to a crystallization of her alternate selves, Asugra and Saint Vincent. As Ada fades into the background of her own mind and these selves, now protective, now hedonistic, move into control, Ada's life spirals in a dark and dangerous direction. Narrated by the various selves within Ada and based on the author's realities, Freshwater dazzles with ferocious energy and serpentine grace, heralding the arrival of a fierce new literary voice. And I would say that this is a very good book description. And as I said, it is a very powerful story that I highly recommend you check out. Next, we have disability or neurodiversity, I should say disability and or neurodiversity rep, which I have chosen Disfigured on Fairy Tales, Disability, and Making Space by Amanda Leduc, or is it Leduc? I don't do names. I really need to get better at that. Is it just there? Like, I like to read things, right? And I do like the audiobooks, but my brain doesn't comprehend when something should be pronounced a certain way sometimes, and I'm having one of those moments right now. Anyways, I've heard that this is supposed to be a talk about how disability is represented in fairy tales, and the author goes into a discussion about that and how that affects disabled people. I have not read it yet. This is definitely one of the ones that I will be reading in March, I hope, as long as I can concentrate to read. But I'm super excited to get into this book. Insert the blurb here. In fairy tales, happy endings are the norm, as long as you're beautiful and walk on two legs. After all, the ogre never gets the princess. And since fairy tales are the foundational myths of our culture, how can a girl with a disability ever think she'll have a happy ending? By examining the ways that fairy tales have shaped our expectations of disability, Disfigured will point the way toward a new world where disability is no longer a punishment or impediment, but operates instead as a way of centering a protagonist and helping them to cement their own place in a story, and from there, the world. Through the book, Leduc ruminates on the connections we make between fairy tale archetypes, the beautiful princess, the glass slipper, the maiden with long hair lost in the tower, and tries to make sense of them through a 21st century disablest lens. From examinations of disability in tales from the Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen, through to modern interpretations ranging from Disney to Angela Carter and the fight for disabled representation in today's media, Leduc connects the fight for disability justice to the growth of modern magical stories and argues for increased awareness and acceptance of that which is other, helping us to see and celebrate the magic inherent in different bodies. and I cannot tell you whether this is accurate or not because I have yet to read it, but I am excited to read it. Next, we have NonFiction. This I struggled to come up with a recommendation for because if you watch my channel frequently, you know that I mostly cover sci-fi and fantasy because that's the majority of what I'm interested in most of the time, though I am a mood reader and you never know what I'm going to actually end up reading. So I was thinking about this and I was scrolling through my Goodreads and then I remembered, oh, my husband just recommended a book to me, which I did listen to the audiobook for while I was playing a video game a couple weeks ago, which is The Woman Who Would Be King by Kara Cooney. And this is a historical walkthrough on how Hatshepsut came to power and the mark that she made on Egypt while she was king, and how part of her legacy was erased and is now rediscovered. There's also a commentary on how women are viewed and how women are still viewed, and how when you're aware of how you are viewed, you can use that as leverage to get things done. That's the best I can try to put that right now. My brain no working very well on this medication. I'm hoping it gets changed soon. Again, different story for a different time. Anyways, insert book blurb here. An engrossing biography of the longest reigning female pharaoh in ancient Egypt and the story of her audacious rise to power in a man's world. Hatshepsut, the daughter of a general who took Egypt's throne without status as a king's son and a mother with the ties to the previous dynasty, was born into a privileged position of the royal household. Married to her brother, she was expected to bear the sons who would legitimize the reign of her father's family. Her failure to produce a male heir was ultimately the twist of fate that paved the way for her inconceivable rule as a cross-dressing king. At just 20, Hatshepsut ascended to the rank of king in an elaborate coronation ceremony that set the tone for her spectacular 22-year reign as co-regent with Thutmose III, the infant king whose mother Hatshepsut outmaneuvered for a seat on the throne. Hatshepsut was a master strategist, cloaking her political power plays with the veil of piety and sexual expression. Just as women today face obstacles from a society that equates authority with masculinity, Hatshepsut had to shrewdly operate the levels of a patriarchal system to emerge as Egypt's second female pharaoh. Hatshepsut had successfully negotiated a path from the royal nursery to the very pinnacle of authority, and her reign saw one of ancient Egypt's most prolific building periods. Scholars have long speculated as to why her images were destroyed within a few decades of her death, all but erasing evidence of her rule. Constructing a rich narrative history using the artifacts that remain, noted Egyptologist Kara Cooney offers a remarkable interpretation of how Hatshepsut rapidly but methodically consolidated power, and why she fell from the public favor just as quickly. The Woman Who Would Be King traces the unconventional life of an almost forgotten pharaoh and explores our complicated reactions to women in power. And this is an excellent synopsis of the book, so if that at all sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. And lastly, we have Femme Fights Back. For this, I have a few recommendations, which I may post to my Instagram just to try to get that back up and running again. But for this video, I'm going to recommend the Nevernight trilogy by J. Kristoff, which the first book of the series is Nevernight. When I think of female protagonists getting back at people literally from basically page 1 of this series, it's our main character here. And this could also count as LGBTQIA rep. You could consider this mother-daughter relationship at some point in the series. Of course, you could also put it as wild card. But yeah, this You're either going to love or hate J. Kristoff's style of writing, so I would say this is going to be really hit and miss for a lot of people. I happen to really enjoy the footnotes because you can read the series without reading the footnotes and get a completely different story than if you choose to go ahead and read the footnotes as they come up. I will say that the first few chapters of this book are quite difficult to get into, but once you get past that, it gets really good. Well, that is provided you like J. Kristoff's style of writing again, which I happen to enjoy. Insert the book blurb here. In a land where 3 suns almost never set, a fledgling killer joins a school of assassins, seeking vengeance against the powers who destroyed her family. Daughter of an executed traitor, Mia Corvair is barely able to escape her father's failed rebellion with her life. Alone and friendless, she hides in a city built from the bones of a dead god, hunted by the Senate and her father's former comrades. But her gift for speaking with the shadows leads her to the door of a retired killer, and a future she never imagined. Now, Mia is apprenticed to the deadliest flock of assassins in the entire Republic, the Red Church. If she bests her fellow students in contests of steel, poison, and the subtle arts, she'll be inducted among the Blades of the Lady of Blessed Murder, and one step closer to the vengeance she desires. But a killer is loose within the church's halls. The bloody secrets of Mia's past return to haunt her, and a plot to bring down the entire congregation is unfolding in the shadows she so loves. Will she even survive to initiation, let alone her revenge? Well, seeing as how there's a couple more books in the series, I think you can figure out how that one goes. But yes, this is a fantastic description of what's about to happen in the series. So, if that sounds like a fun time, and you don't mind some footnotes, or ignoring some footnotes, definitely check it out. And those are all of my recommendations for Femathon March 2021. I will also be posting other recommendations over on my Instagram, so go follow me there if you want some more recs, because hopefully this year I'll get more into Instagram and figuring that out more. And I just need to set myself a challenge so that I actually do that, so that's what I'm doing right now. And if you have any books that you're super excited for or you'll be joining in, let me know in the comments below, and I'm super excited to see your videos. Or blog posts, or whatever. Just link me on all the things. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!